You are listening to Bedtime Dreamy Tales. Share and subscribe our channel. Story title: The Golden Key, Part 2. The sun was now set and the darkness coming on, but the child thought of no danger but the bears behind her. If she had looked round, however, she would have seen that she was followed by a very different creature from a bear. It was a curious creature, made like a fish, but covered, instead of scales, with feathers of all colors, sparkling like those of a hummingbird. It had fins, not wings, and swam through the air as a fish does through the water. Its head was like the head of a small owl. After running a long way, and as the last of the light was disappearing, she passed under a tree with drooping branches. It dropped its branches to the ground all about her and caught her as in a trap. She struggled to get out, but the branches pressed her closer and closer to the trunk. She was in great terror and distress when the airfish, swimming into the thicket of branches, began tearing them with its beak. They loosened their hold at once, and the creature went on attacking them till at length they let the child go. Then the airfish came from behind her and swam on in front, glittering and sparkling all lovely colors, and she followed. It led her gently along till all at once it swam in at a cottage door. The child followed still. There was a bright fire in the middle of the floor, upon which stood a pot without a lid, full of water that boiled and bubbled furiously. The airfish swam straight to the pot and into the boiling water, where it lay quiet. A beautiful woman rose from the opposite side of the fire and came to meet the girl. She took her up in her arms and said, "Ah, you are come at last. I have been looking for you a long time." She sat down with her on her lap, and there the girl sat staring at her. She had never seen anything so beautiful. She was tall and strong, with white arms and neck, and a delicate flush on her face. The child could not tell what was the color of her hair, but could not help thinking it had a tinge of dark green. She had not one ornament upon her, but she looked as if she had just put off quantities of diamonds and emeralds. Yet here she was in the simplest, poorest little cottage, where she was evidently at home. She was dressed in shining green. The girl looked at the lady, and the lady looked at the girl. "What is your name?" asked the lady. "The servants always called me Tangle." "Ah, that was because your hair was so untidy. But that was their fault, the naughty women. Still, it is a pretty name, and I will call you Tangle too. You must not mind my asking you questions, for you may ask me the same questions, every one of them, and any others that you like. How old are you?" "10, answered Tangle. "You don't look like it," said the lady. "How old are you, please?" returned Tangle. "Thousands of years old," answered the lady. "You don't look like it," said Tangle. "Don't I? I think I do. Don't you see how beautiful I am?" And her great blue eyes looked down on the little Tangle as if all the stars in the sky were melted in them to make their brightness. "Ah, but," said Tangle, "when people live long, they grow old. At least I always thought so." "I have no time to grow old," said the lady. "I am too busy for that. It is very idle to grow old. But I cannot have my little girl so untidy. Do you know I can't find a clean spot on your face to kiss?" "Perhaps," suggested Tangle, feeling ashamed, but not too much so to say a word for herself. "Perhaps that is because the tree made me cry so." "My poor darling," said the lady, looking now as if the moon were melted in her eyes, and kissing her little face, dirty as it was. "The naughty tree must suffer for making a girl cry." "And what is your name, please?" asked Tangle. "Grandmother," answered the lady. "Is it really?" "Yes, indeed. I never tell stories, even in fun." "How good of you." "I couldn't if I tried. It would come true if I said it, and then I should be punished enough." And she smiled, like the sun through a summer shower. "But now," she went on, "I must get you washed and dressed, and then we shall have some supper." "Oh, I had supper long ago," said Tangle. "Yes, indeed you had," answered the lady. "3 years ago. You don't know that it is 3 years since you ran away from the bears. You are 13 and more now." Tangle could only stare. She felt quite sure it was true. "You will not be afraid of anything I do with you, will you?" said the lady. "I will try very hard not to be. But I can't be certain, you know," replied Tangle. "I like your saying so, and I shall be quite satisfied," answered the lady. She took off the girl's nightgown, rose with her in her arms, and going to the wall of the cottage, opened a door. Then Tangle saw a deep tank, the sides of which were filled with green plants, which had flowers of all colors. There was a roof over it like the roof of the cottage. It was filled with beautiful clear water, in which swam a multitude of such fishes as the one that had led her to the cottage. It was the light their colors gave that showed the place in which they were. The lady spoke some words Tangle could not understand and threw her into the tank. The fishes came crowding about her. 2 or 3 of them got under her head and kept it up. The rest of them rubbed themselves all over her and with their wet feathers washed her quite clean. Then the lady, who had been looking on all the time, spoke again. Whereupon some 30 or 40 of the fishes rose out of the water underneath Tangle, and so bore her up to the arms the lady held out to take her. She carried her back to the fire and, having dried her well, opened a chest, and taking out the finest linen garments, smelling of grass and lavender, put them upon her, and over all a green dress, just like her own, shining like hers, and soft like hers, and going into just such lovely folds from the waist, where it was tied with a brown cord to her bare feet. "Won't you give me a pair of shoes too, grandmother?" said Tangle. "No, my dear, no shoes. Look here, I wear no shoes." So saying, she lifted her dress a little, and there were the loveliest white feet, but no shoes. Then Tangle was content to go without shoes too. And the lady sat down with her again and combed her hair and brushed it, and then left it to dry while she got the supper. First, she got bread out of one hole in the wall, then milk out of another, then several kinds of fruit out a third, and then she went to the pot on the fire and took out the fish, now nicely cooked, and as soon as she had pulled off its feathered skin, ready to be eaten. "But," exclaimed Tangle, and she stared at the fish, and could say no more. "I know what you mean," returned the lady. "You do not like to eat the messenger that brought you home, but it is the kindest return you can make. The creature was afraid to go until it saw me put the pot on and heard me promise it should be boiled the moment it returned with you. Then it darted out of the door at once. You saw it go into the pot of itself the moment it entered, did you not?" "I did," answered Tangle, "and I thought it very strange. But then I saw you and forgot all about the fish." "In Fairyland," resumed the lady as they sat down to the table, "the ambition of the animals is to be eaten by the people, for that is their highest end in that condition. But they are not therefore destroyed. Out of that pot comes something more than the dead fish you will see." Tangle now remarked that the lid was on the pot, but the lady took no further notice of it till they had eaten the fish, which Tangle found nicer than any fish she had ever tasted before. It was as white as snow and as delicate as cream, and the moment she had swallowed a mouthful of it, a change she could not describe began to take place in her. She heard a murmuring all about her, which became more and more articulate, and at length, as she went on eating, grew intelligible. By the time she had finished her share, the sounds of all the animals in the forest came crowding through the door to her ears, for the door still stood wide open, though it was pitch dark outside, and they were no longer sounds only. They were speech, and speech that she could understand. She could tell what the insects in the cottage were saying to each other too. She had even a suspicion that the trees and flowers all about the cottage were holding midnight communications with each other, but what they said she could not hear. As soon as the fish was eaten, the lady went to the fire and took the lid off the pot. A lovely little creature in human shape, with large white wings, rose out of it and flew round and round the roof of the cottage. Then dropped, fluttering, and nestled in the lap of the lady. She spoke to it some strange words, carried it to the door, and threw it out into the darkness. Tangle heard the flapping of its wings die away in the distance. "Now, have we done the fish any harm?" she said, returning. "No," answered Tangle. "I do not think we have. I should not mind eating one every day. They must wait their time, like you and me too, my little Tangle." And she smiled a smile which the sadness in it made more lovely. "But," she continued, "I think we may have one for supper tomorrow." So saying, she went to the door of the tank and spoke. And now Tangle understood her perfectly. "I want one of you," she said, "the wisest." Thereupon the fishes got together in the middle of the tank, with their heads forming a circle above the water and their tails a larger circle beneath it. They were holding a council in which their relative wisdom should be determined. At length, one of them flew up into the lady's hand, looking lively and ready. "You know where the rainbow stands?" she asked. "Yes, mother, quite well," answered the fish. "Bring home a young man you will find there who does not know where to go." If you like this story, please give this video a like. For more stories, go to bedtimedreamytales.com. See you in the next story.